In this session, we'll be talking about privacy, and I have three mini cases to begin. The first is a true story of a giveaway. This company called Telly, who planned and in fact did, as I understand it, manufacture 500,000 giant television sets that they gave away for free to anyone who would accept the TV and the following condition. You have to have illuminated or turned on the camera, which you see circled in yellow there in the middle of the TV. And that camera would take in, obviously, whatever you were doing while you were watching the TV. And then it would present to you advertising in the lower right hand corner where you see the other yellow circle. Of course, what the camera was doing was drawing, making predictions about the kinds of things you might be interested in. I suppose it was first drawing conclusions about who you are, what you were doing, maybe who you were with, that sort of thing. And then from there, it was making predictions about what kinds of ads would be most effective for you at that moment, right? So it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense from an advertising point of view. They know exactly when you might be hungry if you're sitting on the sofa watching TV and you're eating potato chips. Obviously, that's an excellent moment to make an ad for Coca-Cola or a soft drink of some kind, and so on. Now, I'm not sure, as I understand it, this there was no microphone involved. It was simply image capture. But I think it's the same case either way, right? We could imagine the same kind of giveaway. Maybe they would have to sweeten the pot a little bit to improve acceptance of this. But either way, what's going on here is this kind of trade of personal information for essentially money. So that's the first question I would like to start with. You are offered this television set. It's a giant, nice TV set, 4K, so it's a perfect screen. Lets you see whatever you want to see perfectly, and free. The price can't be beat. You just need to accept that camera. Do you accept that or not? I can tell you in my seminars, it's usually about 25% will accept it. Usually there are some questions, usually the first question is about microphones. The second question is about whether or not it is on all the time or just if you are there watching the TV. And then another question people ask is, well, of course, how wide is the view? I think those are all good questions, but I don't think any of them change the fundamental deal. The fundamental dilemma here is, do you take the TV in exchange for this kind of surveillance? I'm not sure what the answer is. Here is another um, experiment or thought experiment about privacy. This like the previous is actually based on reality. This in this picture, this is Elvis Presley and his wife Priscilla. Now the stories about Las Vegas being a place to get married fast, on the moment, spur of the moment, immediately, instant marriage. Those stories are true. If you want to get married, you can go to Las Vegas and they will marry you almost immediately. Now, that's what happened famously to Elvis Presley. In a moment of inspiration, decided he wanted to marry Priscilla immediately. They went to a wedding chapel in Las Vegas, and this is an image. They were married. Now, what I would like to ask about here is whether or not this is a private experience. First, of course, it is partially a private experience. Or at least it should be. This is where the husband and wife will share their first kiss. This is where they will celebrate a unity that presumably will last forever, and so on. So it's an extraordinarily personal moment, at least we can say. Uh, and it was shared to some degree with friends and family, but it was special in this case because they decided to get married instantly. So many of the people at their wedding were completely generic. So I'm thinking, for example, first of this accordion player who is circled there. Uh, He is a musician at the wedding. He looks like he's having a good time and doing his job. But Elvis and Priscilla had never met him before that day. He was just the guy who happened to be there when they walked in to get married. So the question is, does his presence, in some sense, interfere with the privacy of this personal event? I mean, is it less private because this generic musician is there? I will add sort of one more story here. Uh, for some time, I lived in Puerto Rico. Well, for about a year, I lived in Puerto Rico on the beach there, and the beach was beautiful, and people would get married on the beach. And I remember I would be walking down the beach in my swimming suit. I'd go for a swim and come out and in my swimming suit, dripping wet, and I would just walk right by these weddings. I mean, of course, I would keep some kind of distance, but there's only so far away you can be. And I always wondered, in some sense, am I ruining the privacy of their wedding? I mean, of course, I didn't walk through the wedding. I mean, I was many, many meters away, but still, it's a beach. People saw me, right? As I've had the feeling that I was intruding in their wedding and in some sense ruining the privacy of it. I'm not sure. But going back to this case, so Elvis and Priscilla are there getting married. There is this man who they've never met before. Does that make their experience less private? Is their personal moment invaded to some extent because he is there? Okay, and one more case. This is a very famous case for any kind of um, privacy discussion in AI ethics, emotion AI ethics. We should at least mention this case. This is from Target. It is a somewhat apocryphal case. That is, there's some truth to it, but subsequent investigations have shown it's not quite what as it was originally portrayed. But that doesn't matter. I'm going to tell you the story as it was originally portrayed. As it was originally portrayed, there was a girl about 15 years old who, unbeknownst to her, had become pregnant. She did her shopping at Target. Now, Target had learned from studying its client purchasing history that Target had learned that when women are pregnant, there are certain items that they buy. I don't mean diapers and cribs, but I mean in the very early stages of pregnancy, there are some physical symptoms, for example, scratchiness of the skin, dryness of the skin, just small things that happen to a woman's body when she is pregnant at the start. And so women would buy certain creams and lotions, anti-itch, this kind of thing, um, without realizing that these purchases were connected with the fact that they were pregnant. And that's what happened in the case of this 15-year-old girl. She went in and bought these items. She, in fact, was pregnant. Target deduced that from the items she bought, and they started sending her things to her house, announcing how happy they were about this incoming baby and saying offering her a deal on getting a crib, offering her special bargains on diapers, this kind of thing, to make her a client in those early years of the baby's life. Now the father, who also did not, no one knew that the girl was pregnant at this point, became very angry and thought that what Target was doing in some sense was encouraging his teenage daughter to become pregnant. So he went to the store and complained, and one thing led to another. And he discovered that, in fact, what had happened is just what I have told you. Target was using this information, which was more or less freely given by their shoppers in the past. Target has a kind of card. Many stores now have this card where if you allow Target to record what you're buying on your card, they give you a discount. Target did that and had that. That's how the algorithms knew what was happening. Um, so he discovered that Target had done just this. So in essence, what happened was it was Target that told this young girl that she was pregnant. So I wonder the question there too about privacy. Um, was her privacy violated by Target in some way? How? To what extent? So I have given you three case studies in privacy. And what I'm trying to do with these is give you a sense of the human experience of privacy. What does privacy mean as something you live? And I think that experience can be captured to some extent by this question first, the television. Do you accept the TV or not? The reason you wouldn't accept the TV, I think, is this sensation of privacy loss. And then in the question of Elvis in that wedding, I don't think that anyone would have initially thought that there's a problem with that musician there. And I don't think there is a problem with the musician being there. But I just wonder what it is like to be in a wedding and have someone there who was just generic, who wasn't supposed to be there or wasn't invited to be there, let's say. And then finally, the case of someone finding out something very personal that they are pregnant from a supermarket. I think that too, that sensation that you can imagine someone having would be something like the sensation of privacy for an individual. So, with those three examples, I've tried to give you a sense of the human experience of privacy. What does privacy feel like? What does it look like in our experience?